Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWAS. We're into NFL Week 16 already. Starting off with an NFC East matchup, Philadelphia, Washington. Let's go. Welcome to the SWAS. Hey, get the sauce. All right, like I said, Eagles are on the road in this one. Commanders catching 3.5 points at home. Total sitting at 45.5 across the board. Let's take a look at the pie charts, and according to the data, action's coming in pretty heavily on the Philadelphia side. Over 65% of the tickets, over 80% of the money. As I always say, take this data with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with a few trends here. And if you're an Eagles fan, you're going to like them. So the Eagles have had a lot of success against Washington. Since 2017, they're 12-3 against their division rivals here, 8-5-2 against the number. Specifically, their road games in Washington, 6-1 straight up, 4-2-1 against the spread, and they've been beasts on the road this year as well. 6-1 straight up, 6-1 against the spread. So a lot of trends pointing towards the Eagles here. That being said, Washington's been a tough team at home. They're 5-2 straight up, 5-2 against the spread, although 1-2 in their last three. So let's talk about the Eagles offense against the Commanders defense here. And obviously, if you're talking about the Eagles offense, you need to talk about Saquon Barkley and the rushing attack. That's what the Eagles want to do first. They actually run the ball more frequently than any other team in the NFL. First in rushing frequency so far this year. And when you look at the right side of this graphic at the Commanders defense, it's a favorable matchup. Washington is 28th in yards per carry allowed, 23rd in success rate per rush. Philadelphia, 3rd and 6th. So right off the bat, looking like a very good matchup for Philadelphia offensively. The Eagles' run game should be able to get going in this one. This is a huge mismatch here. The Eagles' offensive line against the Commanders' defensive front. Eagles are 14th in adjusted line yards, 5th in run blocking grade, 1st in yards before contact. The Washington Commanders' defensive line, 28th, 29th, 31st. That's what we call a mismatch. These two teams just played in Week 11, and Saquon Barkley had no problems whatsoever. 26 carries, 146 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns in the game. So at this point, we're definitely thinking, all right, the Eagles are just going to hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley 25, 30 times in this game, just like they did a few weeks ago, and there's not a damn thing Washington could do to stop it, right? Probably what we're all thinking here. I will say, though, if you look at the Washington run defense in the last 5 games and just take out that Eagles game, they've actually been playing much better against the run. In the 3 games since that Week 11 game against Philly, 65 rushing yards allowed per game, 3.55 yards per carry, success rate per rush, 32.3%. Those are very good numbers. They've been playing excellent defense against the run since that Eagles game. And if you look at the Week 10 game right before Philly, they played great defense against the run against the Steelers as well. In that Week 10 game against Pittsburgh, 3.58 yards per carry allowed, success rate per rush under 33%. So if you look at the last 5 games as a whole, Washington has been playing significantly better defense against the run. The Philadelphia game is the one outlier. Look, by no means am I saying Washington's defense can stop Saquon Barkley and the Eagles' rushing attack, but when you look at the season-long numbers, it looks like the Commanders are bottom 10, maybe even bottom 5 run defense. I don't think that's true anymore. I mean, the last 5 games, they've been playing much better defense against the run. I don't think it's crazy that they're able to give the Eagles' run game some problems. I don't think it'll be an absolute steamrolling on the ground like it was a few weeks ago. So I actually think Washington's defensive front can hang tough a little bit. So what do we think about the matchup for Jalen Hurts? Well, when they played the Eagles in Week 11, Washington ran a ton of cover 3, over 58% of their defensive snaps. For reference, the Bucs lead the league with about 45% frequency for cover 3. Over 58% is a ton. They lived in cover 3 in that Week 11 game. Over 67% single high safety looks in that game, which I gotta say, I don't entirely understand. Jalen Hurts has great numbers against cover 3. He's 9th in completion percentage, 15th in yards per attempt, 16th in pass rating. I mean, he's been solid against cover 3 this year, and specifically against single high safety looks, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, 3rd, 5th, and 3rd. So I don't really know why Dan Quinn came out and ran a bunch of cover 3. I mean, I'm not the type of person that would ever pretend to know more about football than Dan Quinn or an NFL coach. I mean, I'm sure he has his reasons. He knows a lot more about defenses in the NFL than I do, but I don't really get it on it by a numbers standpoint. But the reason I'm bringing that up Now that the Commanders have Marshawn Lattimore, they had him for the Week 11 game, but he didn't play. Now that they have Lattimore, I expect to see more man coverage in this game. On the season, they are 9th in man coverage frequency. They didn't really run a ton of man against the Eagles in Week 11. So now that Lattimore's on the field, I expect to see some more man coverage and some more cover 2, which is more in line with what they were doing earlier in the season. So I expect to see some more of that, and that makes more sense in this matchup because Jalen Hurts doesn't have the greatest numbers against cover 2. 22nd in completion percentage, 21st in yards per attempt, 23rd in passer rating. And check this out, against man coverage, great numbers, but 37th in turnover-worthy throw rate. Puts the ball in harm's way against man coverage. I expect Washington to run a lot more man coverage than they did in Week 11. How about Jalen Hurts to throw an interception in this game? That's not something I've personally placed. I couldn't find the market. I don't know if it's open yet. I'm not a prop guy, but I'd be down to bet that Jalen Hurts to throw an interception, because I expect Washington to run some more man coverage than they did in Week 11. Now, I know trying to predict what we're going to see from Jalen Hurts through the air can be a little tough. I mean, he's kind of been all over the place. Last week against the Steelers, 290 yards through the air, 9.1 yards per attempt, 68.8% success rate per dropback, over a 125 passer rating. Absolutely lights out against Pittsburgh. In the 2 games before that, he was struggling a little bit against Baltimore, who hasn't even been a good pass defense this year, and Carolina, who has one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So good luck trying to make a prediction of what you're going to see from Jalen Hurts. We do have to point out, though, that this Washington Commander defense really hasn't been all that bad against the pass. 47.3% success rate per dropback. That's not very good, but other than that, 184.3 passing yards allowed per game, 6.6 yards per attempt, an average opponent passer rating of 85. That's in their last 8 games. That's a big sample size. They've been playing solid defense against the pass for a while now. Is some of that a reflection of the competition? Maybe. I mean, you got the Panthers in there, you got the Bears, the Giants, Titans, with Saints, Cowboys. Then you got the Eagles and Steelers in there as well. So yeah, they've had a bit of an easy schedule, but it's not like this Commanders defense has been getting lit up through the air. 184.3 passing yards allowed per game in their last 8. And something I actually like for the Washington defense is this matchup here. Now, you might look at this graphic and say, this is terrible for Washington. I mean, Jalen Hurts, when given a clean pocket, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. When pressured, he gets into some problems. He puts the ball in harm's way, doesn't get the ball downfield, takes a lot of sacks. Washington doesn't generate a ton of pressure. 27th in pressure rate on the year. So how is this a positive angle for Washington? Well, the Commanders' pass rush as of late has actually been getting it together. Since Week 12, they're 8th in the NFL in time to pressure, 5th in opposing quarterback time to throw. So quarterbacks have been getting the ball out fast against Washington. And the reason I'm bringing this up, nobody holds on to the ball longer than Jalen Hurts. He actually passed Lamar Jackson for quarterbacks that hold on to the ball. He's like 4.97 seconds or something crazy, according to Pro Football Focus. I don't think he's going to be able to do that against Washington. This pass rush seems to be heating up. I don't know. Look, it's the Eagles offense. They might be the best team in the NFL right now, them or Buffalo. So I'm not going to be like, Washington's defense is going to shut the Eagles down. Of course not. But I don't think it's crazy that in this tough division game, Washington's defense actually gives us a pretty solid effort here. But now we got to flip it over to the other side. And in my opinion, this is where the value shifts back over to Philadelphia. This Eagles defense is some serious shit. They're first in the NFL in yards per play, 3rd in success rate. And what makes that even crazier is they got off to kind of a shitty start. This is a full season numbers. They're first in the NFL in yards per play. After the first 4 or 5 weeks or whatever it was, they weren't even playing the best defense. They weren't even playing that well. So the fact that they're first now on the full season, this defense has been on a warpath. And the Washington offense, 8th in yards per play, 5th in success rate, they've kind of been trending in the wrong direction. Now, if you are taking the points with Washington in this game, I do have something for you, and it's kind of interesting. I don't know how much I personally take away from it, but I do think it's interesting. So the Washington run game, last 2 games, 5.9 yards per carry, over 206 rushing yards per game. They were able to run the ball successfully in their last 2 home games. Their last 2 road games, including the Eagles game, they weren't really able to run the ball. And it actually gets more interesting than that. Check this out. The Eagles, in their last 2 road games, were actually getting run on. The Rams and Ravens games, 5.2 yards per carry allowed, 129 rushing yards per game, 36.3% success rate per rush is still great, though. In their last 2 home games, they were lights out against the run. So, look, that's razor thin, but Washington been running the ball more successfully at home. The Eagles defense slightly more susceptible to the run on the road. It's something. Like I said, I don't know if I personally take anything away from that. Might just be some random numbers, but it's something. If you're betting Washington, you don't hate that. Here's where it gets tough, because if you're going to go down that rabbit hole, you actually have to answer the question, do I think Washington's going to be able to run the ball on Philadelphia? And I think the answer to that is probably not. Washington runs a lot of gap concept blocking schemes, 5th most in the NFL, plays directly into the strength of this Eagles defense. They're 5th in yards per carry allowed, 5th in success rate per rush against gap concept blocking schemes. So it's just tough. And then you add on the fact that Washington may be without Tyler Biadasz in this game, their center, who is their highest rated run blocking offensive lineman this season, according to Pro Football Focus. So they may be missing him, which really makes it a tough sell. I know Washington was able to run the ball successfully in their last 2 home games, but this Eagles defense is on another planet right now. So I don't really think Washington can run the ball on the Eagles personally, which means we have to take a look at the matchup for Jayden Daniels. And what's the story with Jayden Daniels is the magic fairy dust seems to be running out a little bit. Through the first 9 games, the Washington Commanders were averaging 8.5 yards per pass to him, almost a 70% success rate per dropback, an average pass rating of 107.7. In their last 5 games, the numbers are significantly lower, 6.7 yards per pass attempt, the passer rating down to 93.7, success rate just over 63%. Now, those numbers aren't terrible, but in comparison to what he was doing for the first 2 months and change of the season, it's definitely a drop-off. And what makes it even worse is Jayden Daniels has only played 2 games this entire season against top 10 defenses, the game against the Eagles and the Steelers. And if you look at his numbers in just those 2 games, 196.5 passing yards per game, 6 yards per attempt, an average pass rating of 75.1. Success rate still looks pretty good, but I think these were the 2 worst games of the season of his career. The 2 worst games of the season for Jayden Daniels were the only 2 times he's seen top 10 defenses. So obviously he's playing the Eagles again, a top 10 defense again. Tough to have faith in them. Philadelphia's pass rush is obviously going to be a problem here. They're 2nd in pass rush grade, 3rd in adjusted sack rate. Washington's offensive line, 22nd and 20th. Now, in the first game, he wasn't under a ton of pressure, pressured on just 28.2% of his dropbacks. He was the 18th most pressured quarterback in the NFL that week, but he was towards the top of time to throw, meaning Kingsbury came in with a game plan. We got to get the ball out of Jayden Daniels' hands fast. And, I mean, it wasn't very successful. Washington's offense didn't look very good in that game. So the Eagles' pass rush is going to be a concern here. And overall, the Eagles' defense, I mean, it's really tough to step in front of this defense. In their last 8 games, they're allowing 16.5 points per game, 4.9 yards per play, success rate of 43.2%. This Eagles' defense has been arguably the best in the NFL over the last couple months. So with a quarterback in Jayden Daniels who seems to be trending the wrong way, defenses now have film on him. I'm not saying he's bad or a bust or anything like that. I'm just saying what we saw the first 2 months of the year doesn't seem like we're going to see that anymore, at least in his rookie season. So even though I do think the Washington defense can surprise us and give the Eagles offense problems, I do think Washington's defense is going to play well in this game. I still can't take that Commanders plus 3.5 because I don't trust the offense at all, and this Eagles defense scares the shit out of me. And the thing with the Commanders is, I mean, if you really look at their schedule, you can make the argument that other than that first half of the Titans game where the Titans fumbled inside their own territory twice, it was 28-0 Washington, like 18 minutes on the game clock into the game, like halfway through the second quarter, 28-0 Washington. The Titans gifted them 2 touchdowns. Other than the first half of the Titans game where they got a 28-point lead, you can make the argument that the Commanders have not looked very good since the Carolina game in Week 7. I mean, they should have lost to the Bears. They won on a Hail Mary. The Giants played them pretty tough. 3 losses in a row. Then the Tennessee game where they were gifted a 28-point lead early. And then last week they almost lost to the Saints and Spencer Rattler, 2-point conversion away from losing that game. So you can make an argument that other than that first half of the Titans game, Washington hasn't looked like a good team since Week 7, which is 2 months ago now. So I think I have to take the Eagles here. I see a -3 at -120 available. Probably take it. Eagles -3. I also like the under because, like I said, I think the Commanders' defense is able to keep Saquon Barkley from absolutely slaughtering them. Eagles are probably going to stick to the run here because they know they can win this game if they run it. So I expect the clock to run. Do like the under as well. So Eagles -3 at that -120. Under, is it still at 45.5? 1 second. 45.5. Yep. So Eagles -3, -120, under 45.5 in this one. Live show, 4 p.m. Eastern time during the week, 11 a.m. Eastern time on the weekends. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. Let's have ourselves a good one. Please remember to bet responsibly. Hit me up in the Discord if you need me. Quick update. So the bet I ended up placing was Washington team total under 21.5, I found. A lot of books have it at 20.5, but I found a 21.5 at -120. I think that's a great bet. Washington against this Eagles defense, an offense that hasn't looked quite the same So yeah, Washington team total under 21.5. I do like the Eagles if you can get a -3. I also think the under at 45.5 is a good look.